Am I the butthole for not babysitting for my sister after my boss, her friend, wouldn't give me a reference? I'm female, 21. My sister has been friends with Cleo since they were children. I've known Cleo my entire life. For the past 5 years I've looked after my sister's and Cleo's children. At minimum 3 days a week, I'll do school run etc. I recently became single, so bills and looking after my child, 1, means I have to look seriously at what I'm earning. Since Cleo and my sister are family, they'd sometimes not pay me on time. I've never had a serious job outside of childminding for Cleo and my sister, so I put Cleo down as a reference after asking. She said yay to me then refused when she got called, which is as bad as a bad referral. After 5 years I'd expect more. My sister is 100% on Cleo's side, saying Cleo has offered to pay me more / needs my help still. They went to drop the children off, but I am adamant against babysitting. My mom says it's an move because I technically didn't give notice / can be upset with Cleo, but my sister didn't do anything wrong and had no notice. My sister won't let me see her children anymore. Am I the butthole? Not the butthole. The fact that she's trying to exploit you by refusing to help you get a better job is grotesque. I'd tell both Cleo and your sister to get stuffed. Seriously, that's horrible. Not the butthole. Oh, it's obvious what type of game Cleo is playing. She is trying to sabotage you so you cannot get a job because then she will lose her underpaid babysitter. She isn't your friend OP, don't babysit for her ever again. This includes your sister since she obviously is in on the plan also. Not the butthole. If they ask, say you obviously can't be trusted to look after their children because Cleo wouldn't even give you a good reference. Am I the butthole for saying my stepdad will be grandpa to my baby and not step-grandpa? For some context, my 23 female mom had me with one man and 2 of my other siblings with another. I didn't know my bio dad, and up until I was 5 I thought my siblings' dad was my dad. He was a massive piece of crap and left when I was 6. As you can imagine, knowing 2 fathers abandoned you really fricks up a young girl. When I was 7 my mother started seeing a man, my now stepdad. He was amazing, but I couldn't see that and just thought, oh great, another man to let me, mom and my siblings down. Over the years me and him would fight a lot until I was a teen and realized he was the one putting up with all my bullcrap and still loved me and wanted the best for me, a true father. Now I see him as my real dad. I still don't call him dad and just by his name, but we both understand that's just a habit and that he is and always will be my real dad. Recently I have found out I'm pregnant. My dad is over the moon and trying to decide what variation of grandpa he wants to be called. We decided on Pa since that's what we call our grandfathers in my family. I was talking about this with a cousin on my bio dad's side and she asked why wouldn't my kid just call him by his name like I do since he's only step-grandpa. I said because he is my child's grandfather, not step-grandfather. She got all offended and asked, then what does that make your real dad? I told her a freaking stranger, even I haven't met the bastard. Now I have my bio father's family contacting me on Facebook to tell me off. I don't even know most of these people, but it's starting to get to me. Since my bio dad did pass from cancer a few years back, so they are probably really sensitive about anything to do with him no matter how crap of a person he was. Am I the butthole? Not the butthole. Anyone can be a father, but it takes someone special to be a dad. He's special. The family contacting you, over Facebook no less, to tell you off, they're just proving that the entire side of the family might be worth writing off. Not the butthole. Your bio dad is dead, so it's not going to bother him. Your dad put in the legwork, so even if you don't feel comfy calling him dad, I'm sure he's beyond honored to be pa. Ignore your bio dad's family. Am I the butthole for not letting my best friend borrow some party games to host a party without me? What the title says. Got a call about wanting borrow games and I said sure, but why? They were all giddy and excited and told me about a party they're throwing with some of their friends. Am I just not a friend? I laughed and said, on second thought, frick no, and hung up. That was immature, but who the frick asks to borrow games and not invite the guy with the games? Edit. I mean, that's a fair point. Something I should have added is that I do know these friends and we even have a shared chat together. There was no text about a party on that chat. Not the butthole. Yeah, we want your stuff to play with, but not you as a total kindergarten level of immaturity. They can go buy their own games. Who the frick asks to borrow games and not invite the guy with the games? Not the butthole, someone who has no shame or social skills. Am I the butthole for having unreasonable expectations for a bridesmaid? Throwaway for obvious reasons. I, 30 female, am getting married in a few months and chose one of my best friends, 30 female, let's call her B, as a bridesmaid. I haven't been in a lot of weddings so I don't know what is normally expected, but for background, here were my expectations. I'd pay for professional hair and makeup for everyone. I did not have a bridal shower or a bachelorette party, I'm pretty introverted. Bridesmaids needed to book their own flight, hotel room, I shared the link to book in our room block, and wear any formal black dress. I thought this was fairly reasonable, but B disagreed. Although I sent her the link to the room block months ago, she did not book then, and now our room block, about half of the usual price, is full. B was extremely upset that I did not repeatedly send her the link and remind her to book it. She did not want to pay full price for a room. I offered a list of nearby hotels at a wide variety of price points. It is in Miami, so there are tons very close. She refused and said I should pay for her hotel room. The hotel also has luxury condos in the same building. I found a 1-bedroom, 2-bathroom condo with a pull-out couch and rollaway beds on Airbnb. It's about 1,000 square feet and beautifully furnished with an ocean view. It was a good deal and cheaper than our block rate even. I knew our other best friends, both 30 male, and a couple, hadn't booked yet either, so I suggested I rent the Airbnb and they could share it. I would cover costs completely. That way I'd be making it easier for our best friends too. B said no way and that I should pay for her and her boyfriend to have a private hotel room instead of sharing the condo. I said it was the condo or she needed to book her own place. She then said I had unreasonable expectations for my bridesmaids and that if I couldn't afford a proper wedding that I shouldn't have a wedding at all. For further background, B is by no means poor or even average middle class really. She's at the very top of the upper middle class bracket. B and I are both best friends with the couple she'd share the condo with. We're all in a group chat and talk daily. B is not autistic or ADHD, and has no allergies or medical conditions. Am I the butthole for expecting my bridesmaid to pay for her own hotel room? Not the butthole, this is silly. Politely stop having this conversation and prepare yourself for one less bridesmaid. Not the butthole. B wants you to pay for her to have a lovely holiday with her boyfriend. I can't believe she wasn't super grateful for the Airbnb offer. You're being very generous already. B might not end up attending the wedding though. Not the butthole. Lamau. Just tell this girl to stay at home and find someone else. She messed up and now wants you to fix it. Not the butthole at all. That's outrageous. Why are you friends with this girl? Am I the butthole for telling my teenage nieces that they need to adjust their expectations? My sister is a mom of 3. My nephew is 18 and my nieces are 16 and 14. My sister's husband also has 2 older kids from his first marriage. They were closer in age to me, I'm 30 now, than to their half-siblings. Both of my stepsister's stepkids ran as soon as they could and cut off all contact with the family. I remember when we were younger, they hated that their dad remarried and were never interested in being big siblings to my nephew and nieces. My nephew has the most memories of them and doesn't care to ever try and have a relationship with them, but my nieces have longed for their older siblings for years, and my sister and her husband have lied to them about the reason their siblings are not around, have lied and claimed they left messages for their little sisters so they'd know they loved them, and told them once they were old enough they could look for them. Apparently both being at least 14 was old enough in their eyes, so they let them start trying to reach out. The girls even paid someone on the internet to track down their info, Facebook profiles, email address and even home address. The girls attempted to reach out to both half-siblings and were ignored and then blocked. They attempted to email them and also got no reply. I told my sister and her husband they needed to rein them in before the girls try and show up at their front doors and get them slammed in their faces or told to frick off. They told me it wouldn't get that bad. That nobody can shut kids out like that. I pointed out that they already had, when they walked away initially and when they blocked them on social media and ignored all correspondence from them. Once the girls started to talk about getting their brother to drive them the 20+ hours to where their half-siblings live, I made the decision to talk to the girls. I suggested they needed to adjust their expectations since their older siblings had ignored and blocked them. I told them they might want to give it some more time. They said they wanted to see them now. They also shared some of the lies their parents made up about what these siblings said. They will always have a home with them, they were their precious little sisters and were always wanted and had been prayed for, that they believed their mom sent them from heaven for the 2 of them. Now I know those 2 never said those things. I remember hearing the stuff they said about my nephew and nieces, about my sister, about their dad for remarrying. There was never any love there. I told the girls I really hoped they would take what I said into consideration. They asked me why, when they knew they were waiting. I wanted to tell them everything but held back. Apparently me reminding them before I left to adjust their expectations stayed with them, and they started to question their parents, and now my sister and her husband are coming for me saying I had no business saying what I did to them. Am I the butthole? Not the butthole. Your sister and her husband are setting these girls up for massive disappointment and heartache. They need to talk to them and tell them the truth. Not the butthole, they're being lied to by your sister and her husband. You didn't expose the lie, just refused to participate and gave advice to 2 girls who are hurting and looking for a connection they never had. Am I the butthole for not letting Mill see sick daughter after she started bullying her? I, 36 male, have a daughter, 12, 2 weeks ago she got diagnosed with leukemia, ALL. I'm a single dad, my wife passed away when our daughter was 2. My Mill, 60, lives 3 hours away but comes to visit pretty often. My Mill always wanted a girly daughter. My wife was not into traditionally girly things. Neither is my daughter. That doesn't stop Mill from buying her dresses and other things she will never use. About 5 days ago daughter asked if she could maybe dye her hair since it'll fall out soon anyway. I figured why not. I talked to a friend who works at a salon. Now my daughter has super cool blue hair. She had the biggest smile on her face when she saw her new cool hair. Mill came to visit yesterday. She freaked out once she saw her daughter's hair. She was saying daughter had such beautiful blonde hair and now it's ugly. Daughter instantly got teary-eyed. Chemo has already been emotionally exhausting for her. She didn't need her grandma making comments like that. I made Mill go in the hallway. We were at the hospital. I told her that was so wrong to call daughter ugly. She started saying well it is ugly. I cut her off and said just leave then if you aren't going to say anything nice. Well, she left and I hugged my daughter and told her she was beautiful. I later got texts from my Bill me asking why I made Mill leave. I explained the situation. Bill said it was still a move to not let Mill see daughter when she is sick and that I probably shouldn't let my 12-year-old have dyed hair anyway. So am I the butthole? Absolutely not the butthole. Your kid comes first before anyone else's feelings. It made your daughter feel better about herself when she was not feeling well at all. If your in-laws want to keep agreeing with Mill, then they can go skydiving without a parachute. Hope your daughter feels better. Not the butthole. I'm guessing your daughter doesn't want to see her grandma right now either. If and when she wants to see her again you should have a firm talk with grandma about what is appropriate to say to someone else. Seeing people is not a given right, and commenting on other people's looks is a safe way to get cut off. Bet your daughter is rocking that blue though. Am I the butthole for singing the cleanup song to my toddler every time my mom tries to give me advice? I, 22 female, have a 3-year-old daughter called Odie. I was living on my own when I got pregnant, and I'm still living on my own and handling everything by myself. My mom babysits only when she asks if she can, because really I don't do much other than work and then hang out with my kid. My mom loves my daughter more than anything, but she's never been shy about telling me how much she did not approve of me having a child so young, or that she doesn't approve of Odie's bio dad. That one is fair, I'll give her that. She doesn't approve of my job, etc. I've told her before how much I don't appreciate her lecturing about my life choices under the guise of giving me advice, and I really don't appreciate her doing it in front of Odie. I don't want my daughter to listen to that stuff. I don't want Odie thinking that me having her when I was a teenager ruined my life, because it didn't, and I don't regret any of it. Since my mom still continues giving me advice pretty much every time she comes around or we visit her, I've started randomly singing the cleanup song. I swear it activates toddlers like they're little sleeper agents, because as soon as Odie hears it, she'll immediately drop whatever she's doing and start cleaning while singing it too. The first time I did it, my mom was definitely confused, but she's caught on to what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, and now she's pretty upset. She said it's immature of me to use my child to get me out of conversations I don't want to be in, and that it's incredibly rude for me to start singing in the middle of her talking just because I don't like what she has to say. I think that there were probably much more mature ways to go about getting her to quit, and I do agree that suddenly singing in the middle of conversation is rude, but also I kind of feel like this is the least confrontational way of ending the conversation. Not the butthole. This is a genius and hilarious way to handle the situation. I don't care if it might be considered immature by some people. Your mom needs to learn boundaries and stop saying those things to you, especially once your daughter is old enough to catch on. You seem like a great mom. She said it's immature of me to use my child to get me out of conversations I don't want to be in, and that it's incredibly rude for me to start singing in the middle of her talking just because I don't like what she has to say. And I say that it's rude and disrespectful of your mom to criticize you, in your own place, in front of your own kid. Odie is alert and smart, and she's soaking up everything like a sponge. And what she's learning right now, aside from I ruined mommy's life, is grandma thinks mommy sucks. That is terrible. Tell your mother, that's enough. If you want to share your views, we'll have to make a date out of earshot. Little pitchers have big ears, and mine has heard quite enough criticism and negativity from you. I won't ask you again. Be prepared for her to flounce out, but maybe that's the price of peace. Yes, this is a hill worth dying on, OP. Either that or get ready for your mom to unload all that criticism onto her next victim, Odie. Not the butthole, stand your ground. Am I the butthole for telling my younger step and half siblings that my sister is nothing to them? I have a full biological sister, Bryn. She's 25 years old and I'm 17. My dad is her bio father but was not in her life for the first 8 years. Mom then slept with him and conceived me, and when I was 1 he moved back in with us. Our mom died 3 years later and Bryn went to our maternal grandparents because dad did not win her over in the years he was there, and Bryn kept running away until CPS intervened and decided that for her safety she was safer in a home where she would stay. Dad remarried and at the time his wife had 2 young kids and they have 2 of their own together now. Bryn stayed in my life. We're close. She has been really generous to me, has taken me to cool places and has kept a relationship going with me. She has never officially met my step or half-siblings. She doesn't want anything to do with them and doesn't care if my half-siblings are also technically her half-siblings. She has 1 brother, me, and that's it. My step and half-siblings know about Bryn and are aware when I'm with her and not at home. They have asked to meet her many times. They have wanted to include her in the family but she has no interest. Dad told them he's her bio father but was not a very good one and that's why she's not involved. His wife thinks my sister is selfish for not meeting my half-siblings at least, because they share blood. Bryn has been invited over to many things and Dad has tried having a relationship with her but understandably, she doesn't want it and considers herself an orphan since Mom died. My step and half-siblings, who are all under the age of 10, were following me around to ask me to invite Bryn over and saying they want to see her and why won't she meet them and it kept going and I was alone with them. I told them she's not their sister and that's why. That she doesn't want to be part of the family and that I know it sucks for them and they want to meet her but that Bryn gets to decide for herself. When my dad's wife got home she was furious with me and said I never should have said any of that and I broke their hearts and spoke on something that I had no way of knowing. I told her that she knows as well as I do that Bryn wants nothing to do with them. But still am I the butthole? Not the butthole. The only real here is your stepmom. Your dad has acknowledged and admitted to his failings. You know how your sister feels. Your stepmom knows how your sister feels. Stepmom is the only one pretending things aren't what they are. Now she is putting the burden of her weird desire to lie about reality on you. It was never going to work for her in the long run. The longer the lie continued, the more hurt your half-siblings and step-siblings would be when the truth eventually came out. Not the butthole. Another post about people trying to force a relationship. This isn't your fault OP and although it was harsh those kids needed to hear the truth. Am I the butthole for not helping my neighbor? I, 26 male, live in a large apartment complex with multiple buildings. I've lived here for years now and there's never been even the slightest strand of communal living, which is fine by me. It might be because I moved in during the pandemic, but I don't even know my neighbors' names or even which units of people living in them at any given time. That brings us to Monday evening when I got off work. There were flyers on everyone's doors. Apparently, the guy 3 doors down from me had an incident where his dog jumped up and knocked his TV off the wall, completely breaking it. He has some friends that live in the complex and they started a collection to help him afford a new one in these tough financial times we're all facing as a country with a few paragraphs describing what a great guy he is, how he volunteers at a local charity, loves his nieces, etc. Today as I was making my dinner there was a knock at my door. 4 of his friends prepared a donations box and wanted to know how much I was contributing. At first I was just confused. I forgot about the flyer and it's been a lot of long days at work. They seemed offended I had to ask what the contributions were for and explain the whole TV situation again but I told them I don't know him and these tough financial times we're all facing as a country are a big reason why I can't afford to pay for someone else to purchase a new TV. That doesn't strike me as any kind of emergency or a cause that needs people going door to door soliciting money. The one woman called me an butthole and another told me that it's people like you, me, that are preventing this place from having any neighborly bonds which after some thinking, made me want to post here. Am I the butthole for not helping him? Edit. Sorry this wasn't made clear in the post, but the dog is fine from what I've heard. Just a big dog that knocked a TV off the stand and it hit the ground hard. Also, the neighbor with the broken TV left for a work trip this week and his friends wanted to surprise him with a new one when he gets back. He has no idea his friends are doing this. At the very least I know he has a job, I don't know about his friends since everyone was asking. I also know the story itself checks out. I saw the broken TV in the trash room with my own eyes and the woman that lives directly next to him heard the crash and ran next door to make sure no one was hurt. The TV was broken days before he left on his work trip, his friends did not break his TV when he wasn't home. There is no way that timeline would have been possible. Not the butthole, in what world does some random dude's TV become your priority? Not the butthole, not your TV, not your dog, not your problem. Am I the butthole for not wanting to have a big expensive wedding when my fiancé has always dreamed of one? My fiancé and I have been together for 6 years and are getting married in June. We have a big wedding in a very beautiful and expensive venue in Vermont that she has dreamed of since she was a little girl. Recently, however, we have fallen on hard times and will not be able to afford it without taking out pricey loans. She's devastated that we may have to cancel. I'm trying to be supportive but personally, I've always wanted to elope or do something small with 20 to 50 people. I view giant expensive weddings as unnecessary and a waste of money. I'd rather spend that money on the honeymoon or a house. I told her early on that this is how I feel but she pushed for the big wedding and I caved. But now this is happening and I feel like she cares more about the wedding venue than the fact that we're marrying each other, and I'm finding it hard to be sympathetic. I mentioned we could have a second wedding down the road maybe, but she's completely shutting down about it now. I'm to the point that I am finding this all stupid and annoying. We are so alike in every way I could ask for except this, but I've been stressed about this for months and the idea of canceling is the first time I've felt relief. This hill is worth dying on. Don't put yourself in debt to underwrite her childhood fantasy. Don't establish a pattern in your marriage where she pushes and pushes and always gets her way. I know this comes up all the time on this stupid sub, but seriously, reconsider this whole relationship if a big dumb party is more important to her than anything else, including your long-term financial security. Not the butthole. Your GF is allowed to be sad about this, but if she starts putting your financial future at risk for an unnecessary pageant, then she becomes an ah. You guys have some hard conversations ahead of you. Make sure you have them sooner than later. And yes, the fantasy should be the rest of your lives, not the wedding ceremony. You are not the butthole for wanting an affordable wedding, especially since you are having financial troubles. Taking out a loan to pay for a wedding is insanity. But you have got to talk to her before this goes farther. There is still time to put a pause on things and discuss this. The last thing either of you want is you standing up at the altar thinking this was all a terrible idea. You would be the butthole if you don't have an open and honest discussion about how you are feeling. Am I the butthole for wanting to move after being lied to? My fiancé, 31 male, and I, 29 female, have been together for 2 years. After getting engaged 6 months ago, we decided that I would move from my downtown apartment to his 300 acres and home. He owns the land and house outright after getting it in an inheritance. His place is an hour from where I'm from in a small town with nothing, stores, food, etc., around. Closest place to get gas is 35 minutes away, and my family is an hour and a half away, which isn't a huge deal, but it's just been an adjustment for me. When talking about the future, I explained that I always wanted to raise my children where I grew up, the suburbs. He grew up in a rural area, school system is not great, but in our decision making he expressed that the best thing would be to just stay in his hometown because he will never sell his land. After a few odd things had been said by his family, I started to question if he even owned this property. I've seen his land taxes, but when going over his credit and taxes there is nothing at all about his property in it. I asked him a few times about it and he acted so offended that I would even ask. I woke up this morning and couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I called the county assessor and found out this is his uncle's land and home. Uncle is a widow and works out of the state. Basically for the last 6 months we've been house sitting. The furniture and everything is his uncle's. I confronted him today and honestly I'm considering just leaving, but at the very least, I want us to move. We have the credit and the savings to buy a home, but he won't budge and keeps saying his uncle will probably give him the property. I feel like he manipulated me to move here. Now his best man is calling saying this is an move and makes me come off as a gold digger. BC, I'm mad he doesn't have the assets he claimed to have. So, am I the butthole? Not the butthole. Your fiancé is being shady as frick. And worse, y'all might even be squatting on his uncle's property. Red flags going off big time. Not the butthole, and I would be moving out immediately. Your BF lied to you and moved you in under false pretenses. Huge red flag. Not the butthole. You moved in with him on the assumption that he was telling you the truth about where you were moving. There is a world of difference between moving into a boyfriend's place and moving into a place your boyfriend is house sitting and may, one day, inherit. Possibly. Also, the best man was an for calling you a gold digger for wanting to know what was going on. Good luck with all of this. Am I the butthole for telling my father that he needs to give me the rest of the money or I won't be back for Christmas? I recently turned, female, 18 and had to go through the proceedings of obtaining my trust fund. My brother, 19 male, got his a while back and has gotten his first apartment and a second car. The favoritism is clear as day, with it. I knew what amount he got as I wanted to make sure I got the same. He even clarified that just before he moved his whole trust fund, father added an additional 8% to it. I got my information in the mail and spoke with the bank. I come to find out that my trust fund is 12% less than my brother's, which is a significant difference. I told my brother about this and he said that's bizarre and maybe there was an error on our father's behalf. I go to my father and show him mine versus my brother's. He just says I added more to your brother's as he knew what he wanted to do with it and that you were just going to be irresponsible. Which is incorrect, as I planned what I was going to do with it and his point doesn't stand as my brother is more irresponsible. He just does it in a discreet manner and is his golden boy. He said as it is my senior year I shouldn't get carried away. I informed him that I wanted to get my apartment at the start of spring. He didn't care. Then I told him that I needed it and he is ruining my plans for the summer coming up. He just told me to suck it up and said he was busy now. I went to him later that evening and told him that if he doesn't give me the money he promised me, I won't come to the log home for Christmas. He told me that if I lived under his roof I didn't have a choice. I proceeded to tell him that I will go move out now, so I don't have to come. He gave up and told me that he will add the additional amount if I just give him some peace for the rest of my curriculum year. Yet later that evening, my mother was upset with me and told me that I was causing immense trouble again. After my mother spoke to my dad, he told me that he was thinking about rebuking his word and that I just expect to be given everything. He and my mother are both upset at me. Am I the butthole? Not the butthole. Are you entitled to their money? No. Are they the buttholes for treating you differently and favoring your brother? Yes. I'd break up my contact with them. Not because of the money, but because of the favoritism, and probably sexism if you're a woman. Sadly, that's typical for many parents to do. Not the butthole. I understand where some comments are coming from. Hell, I almost said everybody sucks here, but that just would have been because I was jealous. Yes, OP is not entitled to the money in the sense that she didn't earn or work for it, but we shouldn't be judging based on our, commenters, situation. We should be judging based on her family's situation. Obviously her parents told her about the trust and gave her expectations of what she will receive. She's not the butthole for banking on it and expecting her parents to be fair between her and her brother. Her parents are the for holding the funds over her head, and picking favorites. Not the butthole. This thread hates people who are better off than them. Any other time, they are never on the side of parents showing blatant favoritism. Am I the butthole for telling my fiancé I won't be asking my parents for money for our wedding? Update, we had a long conversation this morning about everything. Fiancé agreed that he was the and apologized for everything. He's offered to scale back the wedding entirely. His family has been putting a lot of pressure on him to have the splashiest wedding, and it sounds like they're not going to contribute as much as they did with his sisters. They're the ones who pushed that this venue is a must. My fiancé told me that he spent last night realizing that he wants this wedding for us and not just do what his family demands, and he feels horribly guilty for getting mad about my parents' money. He only wishes I told him, not because he thought he deserved to make the decision, but because he felt as if I've been keeping it a secret from him. He said that we can elope if I want to, but I know he still wants a big wedding for his family, so we're looking at options in the middle that'll make us both happy. I'm not a wedding person. So I think it's a little hard to wrap my head around why my fiancé is so upset, so I'm looking for an impartial opinion. My fiancé has ideas for some big grand wedding. It means a lot to him, and while I would prefer to just elope, I am doing my best to research everything and plan an amazing wedding. I'm not poor, and neither is my fiancé. We can afford quite a substantial wedding as is, just not the big fancy venue he was hoping for. He asked what my parents were going to contribute. Here's the thing, my parents do have a bit of a wedding fund saved up, but they've been under a huge amount of financial strain lately. Last year, my dad had a heart attack, and this year my mom had surgery. Now their house is having issues that comes with a hefty bill. When I told my parents about the engagement, they mentioned the wedding fund, and I told them that I would love it if they spent it on the house, and their comfort would mean a lot more than a wedding upgrade. When I told my fiancé this, he got very upset with me, saying that it's his decision too, and just because I'm the bride doesn't mean I'm entitled to make all the decisions for the wedding. I don't disagree with him, but I didn't want to drag my parents' finances into it. He wants me to go back and ask for the money, but I refused. I think we can have an amazing wedding without it. Am I the butthole? Edit, nothing's been booked, no other decisions have been made. The only decision I made was that I told my parents to use the money for something else and told my fiancé I would not be asking for it. Not the butthole. Your husband sounds horribly selfish. He fully well knows what your parents are going through, yet feels like he is entitled to their money? So he wants your parents to live within a home with multiple issues just to have a fancier venue? That's disgusting. Why would you want to marry a man like that? If you can both afford to pay for a nice wedding with your own funds, do so. If he is so desperate for a better venue, save up more. Not the butthole. Your fiancé doesn't get to decide what your parents do with their money. You can both already afford the wedding on your own, and sure, it would be nice if they could help, but your parents have extenuating circumstances. Their needs come before your fiancé's wants. Am I the butthole for ruining my wife and Mill's, and family's, relationship because Mill was being overly flirty towards me? Sorry for how long this post is. So this story starts a little over a year ago when my Phil, 70, was diagnosed with cancer. By the time they found it, it had metastasized into neighboring organs and eventually into his spine. During the time when it was first discovered, Mill 58 was under extreme mental duress and would show up at our house, sometimes in the middle of the night crying. My wife, 30, at the time was very pregnant, and so, with her permission, I, 29, would console Mill, hug, assure everything was going to be fine, etc. We went on a vacation as an entire family, and what we thought was going to be a kind of quiet experience was more of a celebratory one. The treatment was working, the cancer had stopped progressing, and he was in better shape than he should have been. On this vacation, however, my wife and I had a little extra time one morning, and so we lounged out on the balcony of the suite we all had stayed in. To be perfectly frank, I had morning wood and was wearing tight shorts, so you can get the picture. Mill came out onto the balcony as we were stirring, and I caught her staring at my crotch. We made eye contact and she looked away, and I greeted her quickly to make it not awkward. The moment passed and everything seemed okay. Except ever since then, she makes a point of lingering in hugs and brushing her breasts against me when she asks to hold our child, which is every time I'm in the room with them. So, I tried to make a point of not being in the room with her when I'm with my child, or coming up with an excuse to not pass them off. So it all came to a head this past Thanksgiving when we met at their house. There was a moment when I was walking towards the kitchen and she came down the hallway towards me. The hallway is tight at their house, and slowly moved past me with her rear poked out into my crotch. That was the last straw. I debated up until that point on telling my wife, because everything until then felt as though it could be hearsay and Mill would just say it was all in my head. So the following week I sat my wife down and told her everything that had happened from until Thanksgiving, and she was furious. She agreed with me, though, that it could all just be a misunderstanding, and wanted to see how Mill interacted with me in the next couple of weeks to see for herself if anything was off. She watched, and I could see in her eyes how much she was stewing inside when we brought our child over to their house, and her mom immediately went to take them out of my arms and pressed herself against me in the process. I made eye contact with my wife and she blew up. Long story short, the family is pissed at me for starting it all and are calling me the a-hole because the family had finally gotten into a place of being at peace and Phil was doing better, etc., etc. I didn't think of it really in those terms, just how uncomfortable I felt with the situation, and maybe I am. But I thought I'd post here and see what you all thought. So, am I the butthole? What does Phil's health have to do with Mill's continued sexual harassment of you? Like, are you supposed to allow that to happen? Unreal. Not the butthole. Not the butthole. The only person to play is your Mill. She's insufferable. No one can blame you for anything. You are definitely not the butthole. Your Mill was sexually harassing you. You were completely in the right to tell your wife, and good for her for having your back and standing up to her mom. Frick anyone who tells you any different. Not the butthole. Not the butthole. This sounds like so many sexual harassment stories I've heard through the years. I'm so sorry this happened. I'm glad your wife backed you up, and that you felt safe enough to go to her with your concerns. That can't have been easy. Your Mill is the only one who owes apologies. Yes, she may be embarrassed, and maybe she didn't mean it, but ultimately it's your feelings that matter here. She needs to give a real apology, and ensure she doesn't make you uncomfortable again. Until you're completely sure you're not going to be put in that situation again, you may need to limit contact, which is your right, and frankly any objections from your harasser is just more harassment. Am I the butthole for not wanting my husband in the delivery room? Just trying to keep this short and sweet, so here's some background. This is my 30 female second pregnancy and delivery. During my last delivery, the only support my husband, 29 male, was able to give was to sit in a chair behind my bed, because he faints at the sight of blood. This was 3.5 years ago, pre-COVID, so I was able to have 3 other support persons, my mom, his mom, my best friend, in the room with me, so him sitting behind me honestly didn't bother me one bit. Now, when I say that he faints at the sight of blood, I really mean it. This man fainted cutting our son's umbilical cord. Fast forward to preparing for my current delivery, and I can only have one support person in the delivery room due to COVID/flu restrictions. I am really wanting someone that's going to be an actual support person, someone that can hold my leg, coach me through labor, cut the umbilical cord, etc. I also hemorrhaged after my last delivery, so it's really important to me to have someone that can be with me through everything, not just cheering me on from behind me. I understand that he wants to be in the delivery room because it is his child, but I am absolutely terrified of having to go through everything by myself. I've decided that either my mom or best friend should be the one in the delivery room with me, but my husband is really upset with that decision, to the point where now he doesn't even want to go to the hospital with me when I go into labor. He says that he'll drop me off and then show up after the baby is born, even though my doctor said he could be in the waiting area. I don't want him to be upset with me for making this decision, but I also really need/want to feel supported. So that leads me to ask, am I the butthole for not wanting to have him in the delivery room with me? Absolutely not the butthole. Your husband is essentially another patient in the hospital if he faints that easily at the sight of blood. He of all people should understand why you are making this decision. It's a shame that he's so susceptible to fainting, as that's not his fault either, but he's got to be realistic. You need someone who can be there with you and help you through the grueling task of childbirth, not someone peeking from between their fingers at the back of the room in a chair. The doctors and nurses in the room don't need to have to also keep an eye on your husband. There is no reason he can't be close by in the waiting room and meet his child afterwards. Since you are the one having the kid, it's 100% your call. If he chooses to be a big vindictive baby about it, that says a lot about him. I would ask your husband, Why do you think I want/need someone in the room with me? If he says I don't know, then he has no business being there in the first place. But likely, he'll admit that you need emotional and physical support. At which point I would say, if you can't provide that for me, as the one person in the room who's supposed to support me, then why would I choose you to be there? Only to be unconscious and basically inaccessible during childbirth? Honestly, this sounds like the tip of the iceberg for this guy, and if he's the type of butthole that takes revenge on a pregnant woman's wishes for her childbirth by telling you to deal with it by yourself and reduces himself to your Uber driver on that day, then to me he doesn't sound like a very supportive partner all around. I would tell him to drop you off at the hospital and not come back, but that's just me. Not the butthole. Your husband is selfish. Labor is hard, and if he can't support you through it, he should abstain from being there. Not the butthole. Keep explaining to him what you need. Remind him how he passed out cutting the cord. He cannot help you properly. Tell him it would mean a lot for him to be waiting in the waiting room. He can come in right after it's done. Am I the butthole for verifying anything important? I ask my wife. My wife and I are on a budget. We both have decent jobs, but we also have a fair bit of debt. We want to be in a better financial position before we start a family. My wife has a terrible habit of not being entirely truthful about stuff. I will ask her if she picked up groceries for supper or whether I should stop on the way home, and she will say she got them. Then when I get home there are no groceries, and she will say that she meant to do it before I got home but forgot. She just got a new phone on Black Friday last year. She is rough on her phones. So we went on Amazon and found a case she liked. We ordered it. I got the delivery notification while I was at work out of town. I asked her if she put the case on her new phone. She said yes. When I got home a couple of days later I saw the Amazon box unopened and her new phone had a crack on it already. She said that my call reminded her and she was going to do it but got busy. She does this constantly. I have asked her to please just be truthful. I had to go out again after I got home to get groceries. I don't really care about that. It is just a pain in the ass to have to leave the house to get them when I could have stopped at the store on the way home much easier. She complained about her new phone being broken and we paid the repair out of our budget. It may have gotten broken even with a case on it, but I feel that is unlikely. So now if I ask her a question about something important I verify the answer. If we have to go somewhere on the weekend and we need a full tank of gas I will ask her if she filled it up or if we need to stop on our way out of town. If she says she filled it I will ask her for a picture of the fuel gauge. To my complete astonishment she then texts me that she meant that she would do it before I got home. She says that I am being petty and a jerk for not trusting her word. I don't think that I can trust her about some stuff. I just am sick of having to change plans because she chooses to lie. #edit. My wife isn't lazy. She has a difficult job and she is great at it. She also doesn't lie about everything. Just sometimes. Not the butthole. Sounds like your wife has ADHD. Doesn't excuse the behavior, but if she hasn't been diagnosed you too should look into that. In the meantime, stop taking on the burden created by her lack of follow-through, which is a nicer way of framing her behavior than calling it dishonesty if we give her the benefit of the doubt that she truly planned to do these things. If she says she picked up groceries for dinner, but you get home and she hasn't, don't just go to the store. Have her go to the store. You can also change the way you frame certain questions. Instead of "Did you stop for groceries for supper?" ask "Who is responsible for getting groceries for supper tonight, me or you?" Instead of "Did you fill up the tank?" ask "Which one of us is going to make sure we have a full tank of gas before we leave for the weekend?" If she says that she will take on the responsibility, leave her to it, even if that means her having to go to the store after you get home or her getting up early to go get gas before your two leave. To be clear, this isn't about punishing her or teaching her a lesson, which are both inappropriate ways to resolve issues with your spouse. This is about letting the natural consequences of her actions play out without you always being a safety net. Now, this might mean that her actions still inconvenience you. But hopefully once her actions start to inconvenience her too, she will be more willing to work on strategies to be more organized or on top of things. No buttholes here. #Your wife needs therapy. I would put money on there being some kind of trauma behind this tells people a task has been completed when she only intends to complete it behavior. That's a learned survival strategy. Am I the butthole for telling my brother-in-law he has till the end of the year to move out? So my brother-in-law moved in with us last year in July. Our agreement was to allow him to live here for a couple months so he could save to get his own place. Not only has it been over a year but he is kinda inconsiderate. He eats everything, doesn't clean, doesn't contribute any money so he could save, and smokes everything we have before anyone else gets a chance. He also smokes in the house, which was allowed when he first moved in, but then I got pregnant so we sat him down and said, "Hey, no more smoking inside." Anyway, back to the point. My husband asked him how much he had saved so that he could help pitch in if needed because we live in a 2-bedroom and babies take up space. He refuses to tell him what he has saved, and any time we try to show him apartments or homes for rent he brushes it off. I got fed up yesterday because 2 whole bags of pizza rolls were gone that I bought that day. I may have done it out of anger, but I told him he had till the end of the year to find a place and move out. My husband is on my side, but his family is telling me I'm being rude and that we invited him into our home, we can't just kick him out because we had a kid. Am I the butthole? Edit. Just to clear things up. Yes, he is an adult and he has a job. My daughter was born this October, which is why my husband and I really are putting our foot down. Not the butthole. You can kick him out, you are kicking him out, and they can let him come mooch off them if they want. If being a moochy butthole wasn't enough a reason, yes, having a kid is. Boot him out. Not the butthole. What family member is jumping to let him stay if you're so rude? Edited because a typo warrants comments which have nothing to do with the post. Smile. Would I be the butthole if I don't wake my husband up for the wedding of his friend? My husband has time management issues, not sure if that's the proper term for it. This has been a recurring issue wherein, for example, we have plans early the next day and he plays games until dawn and he will give me a hard time waking him up after, and we end up really late to the thing. I have talked about this with him several times. One was last week where he promised me he would help put our baby to sleep because I had a terrible backache, but he ended up sleeping through the night and I had to do everything myself anyway. Today he has a wedding to attend to. I am +1 and ready to leave any time while he is still asleep. He has shut his alarm off several times and refuses to wake up, so I decided to stop trying. I don't even want to go to this wedding because I'm so tired from work, so it honestly works for me. The reason he's so sleepy is because he played games until 5 a.m. this morning and he had chores earlier today. So, would I be the butthole if I just don't wake him up? Other info: the wedding is not for a close friend or anything, just an old coworker, so he is not entourage. Not the butthole. He's an adult. He knows he has an event and ignores the alarm. Let him sleep. At this point, you have 2 choices. You can either keep harping at him to get up when he pulls stunts like this, or let him suffer the consequences. When it comes to the baby, all bets are off. Throw cold water on him, loud noise next to his ear, whatever. He helped make the kid, now it's time to help raise the kid. I'd stop trying to get him up anymore for any event or work. He'll never learn and it will get worse. My father was like that till the day he died. My mom tried for years and finally quit when I was a teenager. Not the butthole. I'll be honest, I thought you were petty at first, then read that even when you were not feeling well, he slept through and left you to do everything? Father/husband of the year there. I say leave him to it. You are not his mother and you got enough on your plate to deal with, since at this point you seem to be a single parent. When you have children, people need to understand that you simply just don't have enough time to enjoy your hobbies like before. Not the butthole. He's not your child, he's an adult. You've tried waking him up, he doesn't give a crap. Not your fault or problem. Good luck though, he might blame you. In which case, tell him you're his wife, not his mother. Am I the butthole for having vegan food at my wedding? Throwaway account because I am a coward. Smile. I, 27 female, just married my wife, 29 female, a little over a month ago. We are both big fans of a local vegan restaurant, and have become friends with the owners over the years. I have a lot of digestive issues due to some health problems. They're a big part of why I went vegan in the first place, so we knew we wanted to ask them to cater our wedding as they have always been so considerate of my restrictions. The food was a big hit, all fall themed as the wedding was early November, so a lot of mushrooms, apples, corn, etc. Since our friends gave us a discount on the catering as a wedding gift, my wife and I were able to invite a lot more relatives than we thought, one of these being her uncle, Mark, not real name. She's not super close with Mark, but they get along well enough. About a week ago, I was talking with Mark and his wife, Leah, not real name, who asked me about the catering at the wedding. Apparently the whole family really liked it, and they were interested in hiring the restaurant for a Christmas party or something. I gave them the contact info and figured that would be it, but not 2 days later, my wife got a pretty angry text from her grandmother saying that we caused an argument between Mark and Leah, because Mark got upset about us tricking him into eating vegan food and Leah said it wasn't a big deal and he should get over it, so they had a fight. I'm inclined to agree with Leah here, but my wife is upset because her grandmother is upset, and now I'm not sure. I have autism, so normally I would follow my wife's lead on stuff like this, but I really think Mark and her grandmother are being unfair. Am I the butthole? Mark got upset about us tricking him into eating vegan food. Lamau. Not the butthole. He's mad you made him eat vegetables. Lol. Not the butthole at all. You used a caterer and Mark enjoyed the food. You didn't trick anyone. Mark is the here for making a big deal out of exactly nothing.